We welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hammonton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And by our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and check them out at www.crowdplayapp.com for details. Ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special edition of the Sports Box. I am Hammonton Mike Galetta, joined by Mike Velarde. Boy, this is a different combo tonight, Mike. Proud to be with you. But tonight we got a very special guest on. Proud to have him on. 11-year veteran of the NFL, 10 years spent with the Philadelphia Flyers, and 3 great girls playing Cherokee basketball. Let's talk to him now, Chris Therien. What's up, Chris?
I'm just going to correct you quick. That was the NHL, not the NFL.
What'd I say, NFL?
Before I will let a little secret out that I do stop down at Bagley Annie's a lot in Hammonton.
Yes.
Because I know the other guy on one of the other streets is going to get mad about that, but you know what?
In Ferreras.
Probably 2 or 3 times a week just for that reason.
Yeah, so, in Ferreras is the other one.
In Ferreras, yeah, they hate
Ferreras. Exactly, right down the street from Bagley Annie's. So that's a good thing. So Chris, we're going to get right to it. You come into the league in 1990 with the Flyers. The team's 5th, ended up 5th that year in the Patrick division, I believe, at the time. The team's 16th in scoring. But then 1992 comes around, and the trade heard around the world where Eric Lindros comes to the Flyers. Now, I bring that up because with that, yeah, you're getting Eric Lindros, but in the same sense, you say goodbye to guys like Steve Duchesne, Kerry Huffman, Mike Ricci. Tell me your feelings about that whole trade and how you experienced that.
You know what? I was at college when that trade happened, and to be honest with you, actually, it's something I don't talk about a lot. But there was always rumors I was going to be thrown into that mix. I was only coming out as a sophomore out of college. I was a 20-year-old and had a lot of pretty good clout around me that I'd have maybe a decent pro career. So again, I wasn't an afterthought or a throw-in, and thank God I wasn't, because everything would have changed for me in terms of what my life's at. I wouldn't have had 3 girls playing at Cherokee, and everything would have been different. But again, when you go back to that trade, yeah, it was from a corporate standpoint and a standpoint of raising the bar of hockey in this city. I mean, certainly Eric Lindros brought that to this city. He essentially, as people joke or say, he built the Wells Fargo Center for all intents and purposes, filling up those premium suites. But it's funny when you look back at it, I wouldn't have traded Eric and everybody else for Peter Forsberg. Probably would have been the reverse of the deal. Clearly Forsberg was a high pick, but he was the best player in that entire trade, including Eric involved. And and rightfully so, he went on to win a couple Stanley Cups, and I played with Peter for a year and a bit, and boy, he was something else. But again, Eric was something that this city, I think, desperately needed at the time. They needed something that they hadn't had in the 80s. They had some couple of good teams, but they hadn't had a Bob Clark in 20 years to that point, and 15 years. And so Eric certainly was something that Philadelphia was able to rally around. It just never worked out. He ended up being essentially, he didn't deliver. I mean, if you look at every other guy in terms of what they've done, superstars go in other cities, they've all gotten it done. And unfortunately, it was Eric that came to Philly, and there was no delivery for it, injuries or whatever else aside. Mm-hmm. That's a weird trade, though, and it's an amazing trade. It was a beneficial one for everybody. The Flyers got a lot of money for it in terms of the future, and Quebec Nordiques got, multiple Stanley Cups, Colorado Avalanche.
Real quick. I'm sorry, Mike. Real quick about that. When that trade happened, I was a huge Hextall fan. I'm a goalie to this day, and I was upset for a week. I was thinking about changing alliances, and I just was a mess for that. So,
yeah, I mean, it was it's tough, right? There was a lot of guys that went from here, like Mike Ricci, another guy went on, to have a good career, and yeah, that's what happens, though, And again, I think, like I said, it was a fair trade because you got Lindros, and the team went on to an awful lot of winning after that. And I'm grateful to have had the chance to have played for that team. And I started in '94, and again, the rest is history here in Philly for me.
Hey, Chris, what's going on? Another trade that went down brought you one of your defensive pairings in Eric Desjardins. I consider him a top 5 Flyers defenseman in the history of the team, I believe. He was that good. You, on the other hand, are the longest tenured Flyer in defenseman in the history of the Flyers. So It's a great combination there to have. Eric was more of a scoring defenseman. We wouldn't really call you a scoring defenseman. I'm sure you could say that too.
I wouldn't.
So, I kind of wanted to play off of the 97 season in the Cup Finals versus Detroit. What was that like playing in that? I know that you guys got swept. I was actually at game one. Building was rocking. What were your thoughts playing in that Stanley Cup Finals?
Well, I mean, when you get there and you get through 3 rounds, and it was pretty, if I'm not mistaken, going back in time, we won the first 3 series, I think 4-1, 4-1, 4-1. And you're thinking to yourself, geez, we're looking pretty good. We're 12-3 in the playoffs. Personally, going in, I thought, everyone thinks they're going to win. I thought we were on paper a better team. We were not. We got it taken to us by a dynasty.
Right.
We didn't realize at the time that they'd go on to become a dynasty. But, I always thought in a lot of ways, like, the way that Yzerman changed his game and the defense pairings they had. You go back to that series, they had Larry Murphy and Nicholas Lidstrom, defending Lindros. I mean, that wasn't what we thought. We thought it would be that big, Konstantinov who had the sad accident the year later in the limousine. But we thought that would be the matchup, which would have suited Eric. And essentially they stick-checked him for 4 straight games, and he was pretty much null and void in that series. As were a lot of guys. It wasn't, 1 or 2 guys. But playing in the finals was an amazing thing. It really was. We're the top team in the Eastern Conference. We got beat by a better team. I don't think anybody would have doubted that. And, it's funny. And I think when I go back to, my years with the Flyers, even though we made it to the finals that year, I do believe that 2000 was probably the closest that we would have ever gotten to getting to actually winning the Cup.
Yep.
Dallas, I don't no disrespect to Dallas, but I think if we got through New Jersey, we had a 3-1 lead. I don't think anybody was going to stand in our way. And there's a lot of crap that happened in that conference final round that a lot of guys after just couldn't play for whatever reason. And when I look back at my career, that was a heartbreak of my pro career, was falling out of the playoffs that year. So many things had gone so well that it just abruptly ended. And, a save here, a save there, and, things probably are different.
So you look at the still staying with the 97 year, Chris, you got, Leclerc had 50 goals that year. Eric had 32. Brindamore had 27. I mean, you were a little underrated. You had 22 assists that year. That's pretty good for a defenseman.
It's funny too, because I had to I actually went to contract negotiation that year, and my agent called me and I said, well, I don't really have much to hang my hat on via points or anything, as you guys said, Desjardins was kind of like the Batman. I was the Robin, kind of hang back, play good, solid defense, make sure. And I like to have the puck too. That's what always Desjardins would say. We both wanted to have the puck to make the play out. He was, of course, the power play guy and just a little bit smoother, of course, but we had great symmetry, and I look at the guys that we had that year. I mean, we had some big time players on that 97 team, and I guess at the end of the day, and I heard Rod Brindamore kind of mention this beginning. I think it was this year or maybe last summer. They were doing something through this pandemic to keep things busy, and I remember Rod saying, if Clarkie would have left everything alone that summer. Rod, it's funny. I never thought of it like that, but I looked back and said, what he should have? He should have just left everything alone. And I think we probably would have fared a lot better. We would have had a chance probably at revenge on Detroit, even though I don't. Yeah, they did win it the next year. They beat Washington, who was they swept the Capitals, I believe, at the time. But listen, kudos to the Red Wings. They were the best team, and they were the best team for 10 years from that point on. 4 Stanley Cups will tell that tale. But I had no regrets. I was a top pair defenseman here for an awful long time. Mm-hmm. We did a lot of winning. We just weren't able to get to that last big solid victory so we could have that parade on Broad Street. And I think that's really the most and I do think the 90s era with Lindros here and the early 2000s is probably the most misrepresented or misunderstood era in the history of Flyers hockey. And I think a lot of things need to be told about that era. I think it was just a classic group of guys, and not enough is said. Everybody knows about the 80s Flyers, the JJ Daniel, but for some reason it's almost like the 90s and early 2000s Flyers have been kind of thrown under the woodshed for whatever reason, and it's not been talked about, but it really should be as one of the most celebrated eras in the history of the franchise.
Yeah. I'm going to touch on what you just said about being more of that defensive minded defenseman. When I say the word or the player, Jaromir Jagr, okay, some people said that you have the knack for playing your best when you played against Jagr. Why is that?
Yeah, someone said on Twitter, if I played like that against everybody, I'd be in the Hall of Fame right now. You know what? It was with Yager. So you know what? He was a division rival. He was a marquee top 2-3 player in the league. He was a big guy like I was, and I could skate. You know, people say you think of a big defenseman, but my forte was I was a great skater. I really was. I was one of my best assets. So I kept up with him or outskated him, and he was good. What was different with him, though, and it was almost like he got boxed in a little bit in terms of how I played with him and how he decided he wanted to treat the matchups with me. He kept trying to beat me one-on-one every single game. Yeah. And instead of just making a simpler play where he would have had it, and instead of doing that, he tried to go wide, and that's where you can like get the guy's glove, you know, or jersey, and just throw him into the boards. And I think that stuff, you know, you can't do it as much now. It's got to be a little bit more of a clean physicality, and it was clean for the time. But for some reason, he had this thing in his mind that he wanted to try to just turn me inside out. And I'm going to be honest, it never happened, not one time in all the years I played with him. And it got to playoff series where the pressure became so much on me at times where like the guys they'd say, you know, what is this matchup like with the Penguins? You know, you guys got the Penguins coming in 2000. They said, oh, we're not too worried about it. Bundy's got Yager. We're fine. And that was what it was like. It's like, man, like that's what the expectations were because I'd done it for so long and I continued to do it really till the end of my career. So listen, I had great success against one of the best players in certainly in the air 20 years. And I have the utmost respect for the game that he had. I mean, this is a skilled player with a lot of size. And he did a lot of great things for the Penguins. Won 2 cups, you know, when he came in with Mario, and he never won one on his own after that. But again, this guy was a point machine, and I had a lot of respect for the offensive flair that guy had.
Absolutely.
So besides you playing with, you know, some really, really solid defensemen like Paul Coffey, it was probably great to play with him. Shel Samuelson, obviously. But on the defensive side that you played, who was the toughest guy? I mean, obviously Yager, you had that rivalry with him, but who would you say was the toughest guy in the league that you faced offensively that you really kind of feared a little bit?
I never feared anybody. It's just that you had trouble with them. Like, you don't have time on the ice to fear anybody when they're coming down the wing. You know who I had a lot of trouble with? Small guys. Really, like, small. Like, I'll give you a name if you've even heard of him. Steve Sullivan, who played for New Jersey. Yep. Little small guy, and he can go in and out your legs and over to the side, put the puck down. He gets looking at it for a second. And the other guy, of course, which many defensemen had problems with. I don't want to say I had problems with him. He was just a very, very good player and difficult to contain, was Joe Sakic. In Colorado. So those guys were good. Marion Gaborik, too. I remember had a crazy move on me. Listen, defensemen, we're all going to get burned. I mean, that's the way it goes. There's not a defenseman in league history that has not been turned inside out where your jock's hanging from the rafters. I've been there, done that. It's not a great feeling, especially at home, but it does happen. It's funny you mentioned Paul Coffey. Paul Coffey came in and he was, when I was 8 years old, I was pretending I was Paul Coffey on my driveway. It's like, Paul Coffey, back to the point. Coffey shoots, he scores. You do like all the kids do the same thing. And when he got traded to us, it was almost like I felt like I was living in like some kind of like a fantasy book of something. Like your boy and hero comes out and the first time, we stepped on the ice, everybody's, he got there, we went right to practice, and so practice ends and guys are kind of milling around after. And this guy comes up. I hadn't met him yet, but I was so intimidated. It's Paul comes up and he starts stick handling between my feet, like standing in line to do a shooting drill. And I'm kind of like, all right, like, that's cool. And Paul goes, hey, big guy, why don't you go get a couple of your buddies over there and see if you can get the puck from me? So he kind of broke the ice, and he was something else as a teammate, just an unbelievably great guy. We keep in touch to this day. But again, those are some of the stories and the memories I have. Where you become enamored. You grew up watching these guys. Like first time I told the story about when I played Gretzky. We were in the LA Forum, and I was stretching at the red line, and I'm looking down the LA end, and I'm like, holy shit. I'm going to play Wayne Gretzky. Like, this is just incredible, So if Paul Coffey was here, Wayne Gretzky was up here, in terms of the aura. He was like a national and iconic type of hero. So for me, that kid growing up, I got a chance to play with him, play against him was something else.
Absolutely. I'm going to switch gears to your family life. Okay. So I coach the Hammonton girls basketball team. Little ways down the street, your daughter, Alexa, who is a senior this year, committed to Boston University. So I don't know what you're going to do, if you're going to be driving up there a lot or what the deal is, but you're going to be having to watching her play. But just, me being a basketball coach and, being on Twitter, being involved in the South Jersey sports girls basketball with Mike Racinto and a bunch of those guys, what do you, when you see your daughters out there, all of your daughters for that matter, and player, I believe she was player of the year last year. I don't know if she got it this year, but I believe she was player of the year.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird year, but
right.
She did as a junior get I think the player of the year is in the career.
Yeah, it's fantastic though. But I just wanted you to shed some light on your daughters and how they have grown up with a sports dad, a professional athlete father, and what you have instilled in them as athletes.
Yeah, and you know what? It's funny, and same with Isabella. She was the, how the whole thing started with basketball is, she actually played as a kid, like a 6-7-year-old, and she says, I hate basketball. I wanted to go play soccer and everything else. And so what happened was she was like 10 years old, and her mother signed her up for this league down the street here in Evesham, Marlton, and she went out and played in that Friday night league, and it was like she was like a natural, like just absolutely unbelievable with her ball handling skills, her aggression, shooting. And so I said, well, let's see where this goes. I had no idea. She was like a 10, 11, maybe 11 years old, 12 years old, and really hadn't picked up a ball. And there she was, as a 17-year-old. She took an underclassmen group as a senior, won the sectional, fell short for the states, but she was a player of the year too, my oldest one. And Alexa, my third one was Ava, is some kind of like just a freaky athlete. My second daughter is just an incredibly gifted, just jumping athlete that does so many little things so well. She's not the scorer that's going to get you the MVP nod, but she's the kind of kid where she's off the floor and everybody would notice something's off with the team. So the one thing, and then Alexa's had a little bit more of a height advantage than the other two. And a lot of them are below 6 foot. Izzy and Ava are both 6 foot, and Alexa's 6'2". So that's a difference. That changes the course of what Ron Powell at Cherokee did in our AAU team. But the one rule I had as a dad, I let them play. I wanted them to get better, to have fun, to enjoy the game, like you're supposed to. But I had one rule, and that one rule is that if you're on the floor, you have got to compete 110%, no matter what. And that's the only time I've ever been frustrated or mad at any of my daughters. I have a son too who's 14, and he's getting ready to. We're still trying to figure out what sport he wants to play. He's so big at 14 that is it football, is it hockey? It's not hockey's not the big man's game it once was. But when I look at the girls and they've lived by that code, not to cheat on the court, play the game the right way, be a good teammate, play defense. All the things that you need to implement to have a good a good basketball team, or any team for that matter. And I think with Ron Powell, he was lucky with the coaches because she was a leader on the team and she was programmed. I considered she was programmed right, and all of them were with a good work ethic. And I said, you guys, if you're the best player on the floor, you have to be the hardest working player on the floor every single day, because that becomes contagious. And then you're also sending a message. And showing the kids below you, like Gabby Racinto, he mentioned Mike, someone like that. Teach those kids the right way to play the game. Right. And he did, because that's a good team. They'll lose Alexa next year, but I think Cherokee will still be pretty strong with a lot of the roots that they have in there.
Absolutely.
So, Chris, the last question I have for you. You talk about the current game with the Flyers, and being an analyst, obviously you follow it. You're seeing a lot more than probably the normal person is with the Flyers. What's going on with them right now? I mean, they're total free fall. What do you think is the issues here with this team right now?
Well, yeah. Unfortunately, one of the things that no one ever likes to say, but I can't find anything else to say, is that they don't compete on a nightly basis. I mean, people would say, man, that's tough for someone to say. The whole city's seen it the whole year. It's not like you're going to fool you cannot fool the Philadelphia sports fan. That is one thing I figured out. Like, there's no, you can go, you can't fake playing hard. You can't, none of it. They'll pick up on everything. So, to have lost the amount of games that they've lost this year by 6+ goals, to have been absolutely shelled by a putrid team like the Buffalo Sabres, who've gotten points off them in 4 straight games. It's time to break up the core, which it probably is, or it's time to have a full rebuild. which I'm not opposed to, because at least the fans then will know what you're getting, and you're not getting fed a line that this team has taken major strides. It's not taking major strides forward anywhere. They need to make overhaul changes, and that's a harsh reality. It really is. No one in Philly wants to hear that. It's a hard thing for me to say because this has been a very, very decorated franchise. And since Ed Snyder's death, you know what? Unfortunately, nothing with the product on the ice has happened. But there's been a lot of things through the organization that have not even resembled the organization I once knew.
So, me playing off of what you just said, either a rebuild or guys got to go. So the guys like Giroux and Voracek and those guys, is their contract hindering them from them getting rid of them? They're not going to have any value that they had 3-4 years ago. And maybe that should have happened at that point,
If and there's no question about it. I mean, I think that one of the problems, and I used to tell Ron Hextall this, we were teammates and I played with Ron, we were good friends. And I said, what are you going to do about what you think is your young guys that are here, are ready to play, and then the older group that's up here? Like, you have a big gap in between, to try to somebody to bring that together. And it just, to me, it never happened. So, that again it's on Chuck's hands. But, Giroux's got a huge contract. And he had a no move, which means you cannot move him anywhere. I think Voracek has a modified one. I hate to say anybody, time is up, but
yeah.
I think just personally, I was here, 11, 12 years, and even at the end of my 11, 12, like it's taxing, same town, same team. I actually welcome the change, and I was really thrilled to come back for my last year. But if you're one of those guys, I don't know why they just wouldn't say, if you can trade me. Maybe they tried, and maybe the other team said, listen, the financial requirement is just too hefty for us. The pandemic's killed a lot of teams, right? And there's not a whole lot of teams that have, $6, $8, $9 million to pay a guy, whether it's prorated or not. So financials become a major hurdle. And this pandemic in pro sports, I think it's going to linger on for quite some time. I mean, you can't tell me that teams like the Florida Panthers or Nashville or other teams in the league that have nobody in their building with no revenue except for the fans are able to pay payroll, to meet payroll weekly, and somehow they are. So I think that if you get stuck with a guy on a big deal, I think that it could be a real problem in terms of future. So you got to be very, very careful now with what you're doing with long-term deals. The other thing, too, with the league, it almost seems like eventually they're just going to wean the 30-plus-year-old guy right out, and just find younger legs to do that type of job. Why pay a guy $5 million when you can pay some guy $1.5 to do the same job at 22 years old?
Right. Well, that's kind of where I was heading to with that. You have a guy like Sean Couturier who could probably step in right now and be your captain. I see some of your rants on Facebook and Twitter, and I love them because you sell it how it is, and
which is probably why I'm not doing games anymore.
Well, listen, it's frustrating because you're an analyst, but you're also a fan too of the team.
I am,
and we could see what is going on, and it's hard to put your thumb on it because one game it's a defenseman, then they waive Gostisbehere, then the next game he's on the first line, then he's on the fourth, then he's on the third pairing. And then it's like they don't even know what they're doing right now, it seems like.
They've got a lot. There's a lot of, mixed numbers in that bag, and they're just kind of shaking it up.
Yeah.
And listen, the season's over right now. They got 10 games left. It's over. It's done. It's there's no coming back from where they're at. It'll be almost impossible. But yeah, I was a fan. I am a fan. Even when I left, I want the team to do well. Like in 2010. You couldn't see my face or be inside my body, but I wanted that team to win so bad in 2010. And I was doing radio then. That's a passion I carry for the team, and I did it, as a broadcaster for 14 years. I think sometimes they probably realized that they were paying me to not tell the truth sometimes. And, maybe they find that out the hard way sometimes this year. But, yeah, I've always been a pretty straight shooter, and I love the game of hockey. I don't like where it's at right now. I think it's in a lot of trouble, and I'm worried about the future of the game, to be honest with you, the way the rules have kind of set it up. Fans like to see physical play in sports. Mm-hmm. And this is in the league now, and some games I've seen guys deliberately turning from hits, shying away from going in the corner. I don't know why that is. Why would that be? Is it because they're worried that they're going to hit somebody and get suspended and there's going to be a big fine? I can't imagine that would be it. But for whatever reason, I think the league needs to somehow get back to a more physical type of NHL, one again that where the the thought process is that for the other team, so no one gets completely taken out like they did in the early '90s, where hits were just vicious. And I think they've done a good job of that, the league. But I do think that there has to be more physicality in this game for the fans to really, really take it on. And Philadelphia is a town like that. That they want to go out, they want to see a physical game, they want to see teams compete and play hard. And this year that's not happened.
Chris, I got one more thing before you get to your charity work. Kind of sitting here and watching the team this year and the free fall that they've been in, as Mike said. One of our other hosts on the Sports Box, Brian Attard, he is a huge Ranger fan. Okay, and he has been through the Alain Vigneault years. He believes that AV is the problem. I don't know. I don't want you don't have to come out and say what you think is the problem, but why is Carter Hart struggling? Why is the defense struggling? Why can't they get anything going? Last year, yes, they were in the bubble. They had some success. They got the 1 seed technically, but why is this happening right now?
It was like a light switch. Yeah, it just shut down.
And listen, again, like this is stuff I wouldn't have said last year, but there's the game in Washington this past week. That looked like a game where the team said before, hey, let's get this guy canned tonight, because it was that embarrassing. Like I was absolutely stunned by that effort in that hockey game, and I couldn't believe it. And everybody said it. Even the alumni I talked to the next day or buddies said, like, what are they doing? Like that's the kind of game where you're at your end with your coach, and it's like, forget it. I'm tuning this guy out. And some nights, again, I'm a believer that it's not the coach. We've gone through too many coaches here. Hexie fired Craig Berube, who took a last-place team on January 3rd in the NHL and went and won a Stanley Cup. I could have told the whole city that 10 years ago, but everybody wants to be smart. Hexie wanted to fire a guy to bring in another guy that was a buddy of his. But Berube, and you know what? And when he left here, guys said this is the best year I've ever had. And personally, was under Berube. So I'm not buying into let's change the coach, let's get rid of this guy, this coach. No, I think it's time that there's some player accountability, and that's up to the general manager to have enough courage to step up to the plate and make the right changes that'll make this team competitive for years to come. If there's a rebuild, that's fine. Then tell us there's a rebuild. Let us know how long that plan is going to be, how long we can expect the results to be down, and we can live with that. Ottawa's done it. Detroit won 4 Stanley Cups, and they decided to rebuild. It happens. The Tampa Bay Lightning rebuilt. Now they're set up for a long, long time. And at least another 3 or 4 year windows to open. Capitals, same way. They won a cup. So again, they got to get the first thing first. Get the compete level up with these guys. Get them buying into whatever you're selling to them next year. Try to upgrade the personnel in the off season. But again, this is not for me on AV to this point at all. They went through a pandemic last year in his first year where he missed. They came back. I thought personally Montreal played them in that first round in the bubble. And the Islanders, and then when I saw in Game 7 last year, looked a lot like some of the nights we've seen this year, to be quite honest with you. So I hope things turn. Obviously, this year is over, but Chuck's got a lot of work to do to get to right this ship.
So, Chris, we really thank you for coming on and spending some time with us and talking some hockey about your career and about the Flyers. But before we let you go, we want to talk about what you're doing now in your charity work. So we're gonna throw that up there and have you talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's not charity. It is in many ways because I'm just trying to get as many people into treatment as we can. I have a history of alcohol, and I'm recovered for well over 10 years now. As I say, I've never drank in my 40s, and one of the reasons I look at my daughter's success, they didn't have the burden of having to deal with that stuff as they got into their formative years, and so I put an end to it. But really, in recovery, and as my role changed in this past fall, I decided it was a good time. I'd been looking into doing this for 2 or 3 years. I'm now the proud owner of Limitless Recovery Center in Fishtown. We're on all social media. LimitlessRecoveryCenters.com is our website. And again, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. People reach out through Messenger, and a lot of the times it's simple. It's maybe a girl saying, "Hey, I got a brother. He's struggling. What can you do?" And we're just so you know, Limitless. We're an aftercare facility. We'll get people once they've already gone through the detox and gone through the extended care. They'll then come to us for aftercare, which can last anywhere from 6 months to a year, depending on how they're doing. And we're just trying to get people to learn to live again. That's what we're trying to do is to break the stigma of what alcoholism and drug use is. You're not a bad person. You have something broken, an ailment, and you have an opportunity to go out and fix it. And that's what I did. And, again, I think some people have read the stories and stuff, my history. I'm actually writing a book right now that with a lot of hockey stories, a lot of stories of my addiction and me coming out the other side of it. So on top of hockey, being a dad, all those things, I'd say, recovering from that might be my greatest feat.
Absolutely.
One day at a time. But, again, to say that Philadelphia hasn't received us well, that would be not true. It's been unbelievable. I mean, and you know what? I hate to say people call because that means somebody's coming in, somebody's struggling. But if they do, and I want the Philadelphia area to know that, when you think about recovery, I want you to think about me. And I want you to put my name to it and give us a call, give us a chat on our homepage, a message, whatever it is. We're here for you. And if you are in an active state, which we get a lot of people, most people that call are actively using alcohol or drugs, and we also deal with mental health. We will take care of that person. We have relationships with detoxes, extended cares, and if they'd like to come to us at the end, we'd love to have them. We have a great clinical staff, counselors. We have great people working for us, and it is. I'm very, very proud. This will be my last stop in terms of work in Philadelphia. For me, the most important thing, though, was having it in the city, the actual city of Philadelphia. There's not a ton of them down there, but for me, it was omni important that did happen. And I'm really, really, really excited about it. It's a pretty neat little area of Philadelphia, and we're helping a lot of people and a lot more to come.
Cool. So, Chris, like I said, thanks for again. I appreciate it. I think I can speak for myself, Mike, both guys from Hammonton who watched the Flyers growing up. We really appreciate what you did for the city. We're glad you're here, and we're glad you stayed here. So,
thanks, guys. I have one more thing to say just about the girls' basketball. The first time ever, if Isabella has a fifth year available to her at Loyola, where her and Ava both play. It would be the first time, if it happens, that all three girls will actually play against each other. So
that's awesome.
Wow, that is awesome. That's great.
Loyola, yeah. So we're hoping that happens. They're in the same league, so it'll be 2 games. So I guess I'll have to have one of those half cuts.
You got to go for the youngest at that point, right?
What's that?
You got to go for the youngest one at that point, or the oldest.
That man. I'm not giving any sympathy anywhere over there, but that'll be a pretty hot, heated game for sure.
Yeah, well, we wish them the best of luck, and we'll hope to see you again, Chris, back on the show. And again, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Good being here. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
So, yeah.
Awesome job, man.
Yeah, another great interview with Chris Therien. We just keep lining them up, keep knocking them down here on the Sports Box. So, Mike,
good dude right there, man. Good dude.
Mike, thanks for getting on. Appreciate helping me out tonight. I know Brian couldn't make it tonight, but thank you. It's always a pleasure working with you.
Absolutely.
I know we don't do it that much, but it's always a pleasure. So,
man.
So thank you for watching the Chris Therien interview. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all those good social media networks. We are on again. I am on again at 8:30. So check me out, and Mike is on again on Mondays on Sportsman.com. Next week, draft.
Yes.
Let's buckle up.
A big slate of the NFL draft coming up for the next week or two here on the Sports Box. So don't miss that.
Absolutely. For myself, Hammonton, Mike Galetta, and the Mike Velarde, thank you for watching the Chris Therien interview. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Sports Box. Please remember to follow us on all of our social media outlets. On Facebook at Sports Box Show, Twitter at Sports Box Show, Instagram at The Sports Box Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hammonton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And also our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 free points. Thanks for joining us this evening.